I'm gonna try this. I like Stefan Molyneux or something yakking a bald head in the fucking internet. Oh, am I allowed to drop f bombs on the internet? I don't know how that works. So like something I wanted to like address was liberalism. And you hear people talk about liberals all the time, and it's often equated to like, especially in the United States, this Democrat Party type thing, which is kind of a joke. Um, Associating with specifically the Democrats. I'd say that associating it with Marxism is even more absurd. Liberalism, as we talk about it often in the United States, is associated with what we call leftist political theories, which is kind of inaccurate. I speak of liberalism, I'm speaking of a specific philosophical tradition that rises out of the Enlightenment. So we start to get into concepts of free will, individualism. Um, we got a lot of good out of liberalism in history. That did occur. We started, down the scientific roads and starting looking for natural occurrences of things. Empiricism brought us into understanding so we could go as far as to create computers and fly and the industrial revolution, and we advanced with technology through liberalism because we stopped accepting God and the church as an like the definitive of everything. But liberalism itself is this wide range of philosophies that come out of the Enlightenment. I mean, it's on the left and the right in the United States. We start talking about or arguing over what human nature is or what's natural. The whole human nature thing is kind of a myth, a belief system, especially in the social realm when we're discussing something like human action, like the right, or what the right, for lack of a better term, like Mises talks about human action, but he falls into the trap of this liberalism and this empiricism of which he observes human action and calls it natural. Well, our actions aren't a natural phenomenon. They are human actions. We reify the concepts that we have, these philosophies. Throughout history, this is seen, for a long time, the world is structured through religion and churches and kings, and the belief in the divine king as the definitive God, or the church has defined what is reality, what is right and wrong. When we get to liberalism, we start questioning the individual must determine what is right and wrong. You get concepts like the Bible, right? They take the Bible out of the hands of the church and give it to the people. So they start using, since God and the Bible is the definition of the ultimate truth or the definitive truth. Now the individual gets to read the Bible in their own language. It's Martin Luther's like pounding his theses into the door of the church and all that shit. So we start down this road. Max Weber kind of gets really interesting with it when it comes to capitalism and stuff in his book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. It kind of lays out how these concepts of Protestantism, this individual work ethic and stuff like that, start to form capitalism as we know it. But that's a longer discussion for another time. As we understand liberalism, it's very diverse amongst people. Our comprehension of the term. Ferdinand de Saussure is an interesting guy to read. I discovered him at a half-price books and picked it up. I read a lot. So, reading de Saussure, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right or not. De Saussure, I come to see that anything that we understand or comprehend, he gives the concept of a tree. If you're born, let's say, in Alaska, and someone says tree, you picture this pine tree. But if you're born in Hawaii, you're going to picture a palm tree. Concepts of liberalism, freedom, etc., are even more diverse than what we picture. They are largely informed by the shared mind process. The narratives that drive how we understand these things. George Herbert Mead is really wonderful in describing the shared mind process. He's one of my favorite theorists currently. He explains and describes how we are formed through the social action. Let's take a child, for instance. You're first born. I have this niece. Little. I have two kids too. Little babies. They begin their understanding of the world through what they take in from me or my sister and her husband. These children beginning to form their understanding of basic material things, a chair, food. Without this human interaction that's creating this child, raising it up to be able to interact through language, through recognition of significant objects in their life, they're pretty much nothing. They've had plenty of like they talk about the kids you find that haven't been socialized or raised. We discovered that without the human interaction in the mind, the brain actually doesn't grow and form. So the social process itself creates us as human beings. The material conditions that we exist within form us. Now, a large part of this formation is the philosophy, the belief that we are formed within. And liberalism has been dominant for 500 some years. Despite the theorists that came up and started to question it or challenge it in the last couple hundred years, it still remains dominant. But liberalism itself was very much the same when it came up as a philosophical tradition and began to alter the world. It was not widely accepted. You can hear about all these people, Galileo and everybody, starting being persecuted by churches, this deviance from the accepted social belief systems that exist. The big catch, or the big realization I'm trying to get to, despite my ramblings, is that society itself is constructed by the beliefs we are holding. Instead of a God, we made up a God, and we laid down the foundations and beliefs and rules that God said are absolute truths. We are now doing so with these philosophies and these belief systems, and they're ingrained in most forms of human interaction, in our entertainment, in our news stories. They form the biases which we perceive things through, the biases that we have, and our understandings of what we're perceiving, the lens of which we observe through. And understanding those biases, things like liberalism, et cetera, is helpful in advancing our ability to see closer to the truth and reality, and understanding that we have constructed our own cages through these philosophies such as liberalism or individualism, is a good step to take forward into understanding how to get out of them. I guess I'll try to post later and expand on that. Might be a little bit of a ramble all across the board. I don't know. I gave it an attempt. Please ask questions. I'd like to expand on things there. I'm going to try to. We'll see. How do I turn off this thing?